So what does it actually mean to win in life? I left my 15-year career just a few months ago, and I've been meditating on this question for quite some time, and I thought about making this video because I genuinely believe there is a 6-step formula to actually understanding what success means beyond the conditioning and the programming that might come from our family and our society and our community and our background. So to begin with, this process really requires awareness. To understand what success means and to go after it, the first thing we need to do is to define success. What does success actually mean? And oftentimes, if we really think about it, we kind of see that our idea and our version of success is inherited from our childhood. Oftentimes, it could be related to how our parents viewed success or how our community viewed success, or things that happened when we were growing up that made us look and understand success in a certain way. And if you think about it, when you're brought up in a certain environment, whether it's a good environment or whether it's a slightly challenging environment, that's the incubation period for our psyches. It's an incubation period for how we think. And during that period, a lot of the things that we tell ourselves and a lot of the voices that come into our mind are actually planted. And those are seeds that are going to follow us throughout life. So in my case, for example, success has always been to make a lot of money, to have financial security, to have a nice car, to have a prestigious career, to have a good reputation. And those have nothing to do really with my immediate family or my immediate background. They have to do with me and how I responded to my background and to my situation while I was growing up. I created these ideas in my mind because they gave me comfort and they gave me safety when I was growing up. So you can also ask yourself this question: what is your definition of success and where does it come from? Because that is the most important ingredient and the first step in actually getting to a point where you can live a more aligned life that is taking you towards success. Success, in a way, is defined not only by our circumstances and our society, it is also defined by where we grow up in the world. We are mirrors. Everything in this world is a mirror. And when we grow up in a place where there are so many fractures and there are so many challenges, all we're going to do is we're just going to mirror those fractures and mirror those challenges. If we grow up in a place that's super relaxed, super comfortable, then we're also going to mirror that relaxation and that comfort. And all of these values are going to be embedded in our mind and in our body, and they're going to follow us through life, and they are going to impact our quality of life and how we actually define success. But then we come to the second part of the formula, which is there is always a moment of awakening. So for me, for example, it was the passing of my father. I lost my father maybe close to more than 10 years ago, close to 13 years ago. And it was a moment of reckoning and a moment of awakening for me because it really shook me to my core. I've always been a very introspective person. I've always wanted to develop my awareness in life and do things that are more aligned and do things that are very authentic as much as I can since I was a really young kid. But losing my dad, it's just an existential break in your psyche that really makes you think about life. And that moment of awakening doesn't necessarily need to be losing a loved one. It could be many things. It could be you have a fallout in a relationship. You're just walking and you're looking at a sunset and for some reason you get a moment of reckoning or awakening or an inspiration. It could be something tragic like a car crash, God forbid, or it could be something just simple that is just some inspiration. You finally get something clicks and you realize, why am I living this way? We're all going to die eventually. People don't like to say it, but our lives are so finite and we live as if we are immortal. But in the truth, it is not a depressing thing to actually say that we are going to die. It is a very liberating thing because it keeps you in touch with that idea that during the last moments of your life, when you look back, are you going to be happy with what you've done? Or are you going to say, oh, I wish I did things differently. I wish I was a bit more brave here. I wish I was a bit more rude there. That is the essence of actually finding your success in life and finding your success formula in life. So that moment of awakening is very important to take you away from that conditioned life where you're jumping through the hoops or going through the hamster wheel based on your conditioning and based on all of those definitions of success that you've inherited or that you've developed growing up. That is the second and most important part of the formula. If that moment of awakening hasn't come, It doesn't mean you need to chase it. I genuinely believe that maybe 40 or 50% of something is actually effort, and the other 50% is just grace. It just comes to you. So yes, you do need to make effort. You do need to be curious. You do need to hope that you get that moment of awakening. But if it doesn't come, you need to be patient, because it will come. There's only so much you can do, and the rest is actually just a gift from the universe or from a higher power, from whatever you want to call it. So that brings us to the third part of our equation, and that is the struggle to find a new direction. And that, my friends, is probably one of the most difficult parts, because you think you're making progress and you only find yourself in the same place you were maybe a few years ago. And that can be so disheartening. But the truth is, progress is not linear. Progress is oftentimes very cyclical. So you are moving up, obviously in an upward trend, but you are oftentimes coming back to where you were before. If you look at the trend, hopefully it's going to be upwards. So that brings us to that third element, the struggle to find a new direction. In my case, that struggle was probably 10, 13, maybe even close to 15-year period where I tried to break free from my career. And I tried to do that so many times. And it was like a pill I had taken after that moment of awakening, or after that aha moment that I had. It was a pill that I took. Like metaphorically, I didn't take like a pill. But that pill, it takes very long time for that pill to actually have an impact on you. The first thing I did was, after a year or two after my dad passed, I left my job. I searched for meaning. I tried to start my own company, and I failed at that. That gave me so many learnings. So I went back into the job market and I found another job, and I worked for many years. And then I realized that, you know what? I need to make money if I want to afford a life that is more aligned and that is more meaningful and that is more honest. So then I decided to get a job that actually pays more. And I did that, and I followed through. And then after that, I actually left that job because I wanted to follow through on the plan, which means I wanted to actually live a life that is more aligned. And this is where I am right now. So this struggle to find a new direction is a very sacred and very important part of any journey towards success. We cannot wake up from our beds and suddenly believe that everything is going to be great and that the universe and the world is going to shower us with success. The struggle is a part of our journey, because the struggle is what actually crafts our personalities, and it crafts our mind, and it crafts our body in a way that is actually susceptible to this success. So after going through all these struggles myself, I'm a different person. I'm a little bit more confident. I'm a little bit more rash. have a little bit more faith. And all of these things make success, and the kind of version of success that I'm looking for, my personal version for success, they make it much more possible to actually happen and for it to actually manifest in my life. So people that say just put a direction and you're going to manifest and the world is going to just give you what it wants, I don't really believe in that. I believe that yes, you should put a direction, and yes, the world will give you what you want, but struggle and hard work and being unsure and feeling unsafe and then feeling safe again and then going through mistakes, and then, it's a messy process and a very important stage in the formula to actually getting to your version of success in this life. And that brings us to the fourth stage, which is the stage that I'm at now, and it's actually my favorite stage because it's the craziest and most exciting and most scary stage. So you think that you've struggled everything, all of that struggle that you've done, you think that's it. You think that, okay, great, now I deserve success. But no, the purpose of the struggle is actually to bring you to a point where you're still and centered, and where you actually are in touch with yourself and you're in touch with your heart and you know what you want. And as soon as you get to that point, the only thing you can do, my friends, is jump. And that is the most interesting moment in this journey towards success. And it is the fourth stage, where all you can do is take a leap of faith. That can be towards a project you believe in. That can be towards an idea or a value that you're moving towards. And what's important about this leap of faith is that it doesn't really matter what you're doing on your journey to success. What matters is how you're doing it. It doesn't matter whether you're starting a podcast or writing a book or doing an online course or finding a job that you love or starting up your own company. What matters is the intention and the drive and the value, the compass the direction you're going. Because as long as you're going towards the direction of what you believe is success, what you define as success, remember that struggle opened up your heart and it showed you what you want. So as long as you're moving in that direction, then you are creating the foundations of a life where you can be living in that success according to your definition of that success. And I think it's very important to to mention here that the struggle opens us up. The struggle makes us able to get to a point where we're in touch with our heart. And when we are in touch with our heart, the only thing that is left to do, the only thing that is even possible to do, is to jump, is to take a leap of faith. Because oftentimes when we're in touch with our heart, we look around us and finally we can hear ourselves. We can hear our authentic voice. And most often, everything around us, we will look at it and it will be in dissonance. It will not be in congruence with this voice that's coming from within. So in such a situation, you can do two things. You can let it drag on and go through another struggle, right? To open up even more. Because the objective is actually for that voice to become loud enough so that you can have enough courage, so that you can understand that the only thing that you can do is actually jump, is actually take that leap of faith. Because there is no such thing as fear when your mind and your body are allies on your journey of success. But when they're fighting you with a bunch of conditioned voices and with a bunch of voices coming because you're a mirror for the people around you, then you're never going to be able to reach that moment where you can be able to take a leap of faith. That brings us to the fifth stage of the formula of success when you want to find authentic success in this life. And the fifth is that identity can be your greatest friend and it can also be your greatest enemy. And that I just mentioned earlier, that when you want to take this leap of faith, after you've struggled so much and after your heart has opened up and after you can hear the voice of your own heart finally, after all of these years, when you want to take that leap of faith and when you realize that everything around you might be in a state of dissonance with your own values and with your own definition of success, then the only thing keeping you from making that leap of faith is your identity. It is your memory of who you tell yourself that you are. And with your identity can come a lot of fear. You could be like, oh my God, how am I going to travel the world on a shoestring budget and just make videos? That is crazy. That's career suicide. I'm that kind of person. I shouldn't be doing that. I should be having a great job. I should be having a certain kind of career and friends. And this is who I am. This is what makes me feel safe from the inside. But that is not true, because that is counter to your definition of success. And that is your identity actually bringing you down and actually keeping you from breaking through a glass wall. That it's the veil. It is truly a veil that stops you from reaching at that success that you have defined. So my identity, for example, is very rooted in the fact that I think that I'm a very intellectual person, that I should be working for a very reputable company, that I should be making a lot of money, that I should, and there's nothing wrong with making money, but I'm just saying what my identity tells me and that I come across as in a certain way. And I love those things about myself. I'm not saying that we should, just annihilate them or just take them out of the picture. But the truth is, my identity needs to be flexible because there are new elements that need to come into the picture for me to be able to find the success that I'm looking for. So for example, if my heart is telling me that I need to share truth with people and that I want to do educational content, for example, that I need to have the courage to stand in front of a camera and speak without feeling that I'm going to be judging myself or without being afraid that I might be judged by other people for doing this specific thing because it is not in line with my identity and who I've been for more than 35 years in my life. So the identity aspect is very important because that alone could actually be a stage where you're really looking at yourself and you're meditating on yourself and you're trying to really unlock what it means to be a person. Because this can be done on so many levels. You can do it on level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you really want to go deep, then you question, what is identity? Why is this thing holding me back? How can I work with these voices, right? With this conditioning? How can I work with this conditioning so that it helps me in my journey towards success instead of it being an enemy, and instead of it being a hindrance, and instead of it being a challenge? And I think the most beautiful tool to craft, to becoming friends with this identity is to, first of all, bring awareness to all of these conditions and all of these voices that are part of your identity, and to realize that some of these things are actually keeping you from reaching that journey or that success that you hold so dear and that you want to actually manifest in your life. And that brings us to the final stage in our journey. Basically, it is understanding what success really means. And you might think that, okay, you went through the struggle, your heart opened up, you jumped, you took a leap of faith, and then your identity also shifted and changed, and now you're in a different place in life and you're able to actually be successful. But that is the most beautiful thing, that when you've done all this work, you realize that what does success actually mean? You come back to that question that you were thinking about during the phase when you were struggling. And you realize, at least from my point of view, you realize that success is actually the ability to remain still and to remain peaceful and to have a peaceful, still, and calm mind no matter what is happening in your life. No matter if you have a family and children and a mortgage to pay, no matter whether you have a very demanding career, no matter whether you want to be an artist and a content creator, it doesn't matter what's on the outside. The true definition of success is that you're able to keep a smile on your face and you're able to keep peace and stillness and tranquility in your body and your mind, no matter what your life looks like on the outside. And that is so crazy because we have to go through all of this journey of identifying and struggling and then basically opening up our heart and then taking a jump of faith and then changing our identity, only to come to a point to realize that success is just stillness. Success is just peace. And the funny thing I want to, conclude this video by saying is that this journey we're going through, I believe, is actually a reflection of something that's happening on a higher level, our higher consciousness, and even higher than our higher consciousness, the collective consciousness. If we're all moving towards waking up, then this journey that we're going through, which is a very necessary journey, and there is no beating around the bush, there is no bypassing it. It is an embodied journey. It is an embodied reflection, three-dimensional reflection in the flesh of the process of awakening to your true nature. So once you're able to sit in a space and truly be still and truly be peaceful, no matter what life demands of you, then you are the most successful person in the world. And to truly be happy, of course, as well. And we have to go through all of this journey and all of this process to come to that specific stage and that specific point. And the truth is, if we're not doing our external responsibilities and our external duties, like for example, working in a company or being a father or being a mother or being a content creator or being an artist or being a monk, if we're not doing those external activities, then we can never enjoy the fruit of that success, because our mind is always going to be struggling. Like, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? What do we need to do? No, that process is very important. That struggle is very important. That opening of the heart is very important. That leap of faith is very important because it brings us into a space where we are finally surrendering to whatever it is that we need to do after all of this process has unfolded. And in my humble view, that is the true definition of success. And that is the formula to actually get there. If you are passing through this journey, if you have thoughts and ideas of your own, I would love to hear them in the comments and would love to connect with you. Much love.